Who are the riders that are most likely involved in a motorcycle crash? Your answer might be new riders, because everybody likes to pick on new riders. But even though new riders are at a higher risk, they have one thing in their favor. They're really focused on riding. So I think that reduces the number of crashes that they're involved in, because they're still really focused on being safe out on the street. If you watch this channel, you'd know that returning riders carry some significant risk as well. They rode when they were younger, and they try to start back right where they left off, and this sometimes is a costly mistake. But today I want to talk about a high-risk group that nobody seems to be talking about. This is a group that every rider watching this video has been in, and you'll most likely be in again at some point in your riding life. This week we discuss it here on MCrider, and if you fall into this category, I'll give you some tips to help you out. I think this is a really interesting discussion. Hey, my name's Kevin, and I host a weekly motorcycle show here on MCrider that focuses on road skill or road strategy to help make you a better rider. Hit that subscribe button here on YouTube or head over to MCrider.com, where I have every video ever released on MCrider in an easy-to-use format. While you're there, you can sign up for the weekly newsletter, and I'll send every new video right to your inbox. So who is this group of riders that are at a higher risk of being involved in a crash? Well, let me read a bit directly from the Hurt Report. There are two interesting bits of information found in this quote from the Hurt Report. The Hurt Report, if you don't know, is one of the most complete studies ever completed on the topic of motorcycle crashes and their causes. So let's read the first part of that quote. In general, the median experience for total street motorcycle riding experience is almost 3 years. So to explain that, if you took all of the riders and you looked at their experience on the motorcycle, in the middle of that experience, you'd find riders who had about 3 years of experience. So that's the median of experience for motorcycle riding. Some people have less, some people have much more, but the rider right in the middle has 3 years of experience. But the quote doesn't end there, and this is what I find is the really interesting part. Hurt goes on to say, but the median experience on the accident-involved motorcycle is less than 5 months. So let me say that another way. More than half of accident-involved motorcycle riders had less than 5 months experience on the accident motorcycle, so on the motorcycle they were riding, although their total street riding experience was almost 3 years. So who is at greater risk of being involved in a motorcycle crash? Any rider, regardless of their experience on a new or a new-to-them motorcycle, one which they don't have much experience on. Well, why is that? Well, we're kind of left to speculate, but as an experienced rider who changes bikes pretty frequently, I can take a pretty educated guess on the subject. I have two bikes sitting right behind me, a Honda Goldwing Tour DCT and a BMW R1250 GSA. Those bikes handle differently. Some of the controls are not even in the same location. I can't tell you how many times I honked the horn on the BMW when I started riding it when I thought I was thumbing the blinker to turn left or right. These bikes brake differently. They carry their weight differently. Heck, these two bikes have entirely different transmissions. One's a DCT and the other's a standard 6-speed but with a quick shifter on it. So what happens when you finally trade in that motorcycle that you've been riding for the last 5 years? In some respects, you're starting all over again. You're getting used to the controls, learning new braking systems and the suspension setup, how it handles in the corner, how much lean angle it can take, and where does the engine like to shift gears, and what are the characteristics of that new engine. All the things that make a new motorcycle exciting and new are also the things that are putting you at a higher risk. So what do we do to mitigate that risk? I think one of the most important things that we can do is to read the owner's manual. Sounds pretty simple, but it's true. especially if it's a more complex machine like the ones behind me. And there's a lot to learn about some of these newer motorcycles. In the age of electronic suspension, throttle-by-wire, cruise control, cornering ABS, TFT displays, and more, it takes a fair amount of time just to learn how things work on these new motorcycles, and every manufacturer handles all of that a little bit differently. So read the manual. Better yet, sit on the motorcycle in the garage with the manual in hand and figure out how it works that way. Play with the controls, learn where they are located, and start developing that muscle memory to use the controls in the garage before you take it out on the street. It's important that the primary controls you can use without having to look down at them. And on some of these bikes, like the two behind me, there's a lot of buttons there to learn. The field guide is also an excellent resource to use as you're getting used to a new motorcycle. As you're breaking in the motorcycle, grab a few cones and go out to a parking lot and get a feel for the cornering characteristics of the bike. Practice emergency braking, practice that brake and escape exercise, do that start and stop exercise. The field guide has exercises to develop smooth throttle control, which will be a whole lot different on your new motorcycle. Do some slow speed exercises included in the field guide so you can get used to the clutch and the throttle to better understand the torque characteristics of the new motorcycle. There's a lot to work on, and I believe one of the best ways to break in a new motorcycle is to just vary the riding experience. Don't just ride in a straight line at steady throttle. Basic control and cornering exercises are a good way to help break in the motorcycle and at the same time help you learn the characteristics of a new machine. And it's a common story. A rider gets his or her dream motorcycle and crashes it in the first few weeks of ownership, and it's partly because they're not used to that new motorcycle. And another important point while we're on the subject, in my opinion, is that you should get some experience on the new motorcycle before you let someone else get on the back. A passenger changes the dynamics of the bike again, and you want to make sure you're fully comfortable with the motorcycle on your own before you're ever taking responsibility for a passenger. So if you want to take care of yourself and your new motorcycle, the very best thing you can do is to make sure you tighten up that nut that connects the handlebars to the seat. And that's you. Till next week, guys, it's Kevin with MCrider, and I'll see you on the road. Some of you will get that joke after you shut this video down. There are multiple ways to support the channel. You can become a member on YouTube at mcrider.com/member or support the channel through Patreon at mcrider.com/support. Either way, you'll get full access to the forum and the field guides, which will further the training that we release here on a weekly basis.